If you've ever seen pictures of Saturn's rings, you may have noticed something odd. There are these dark, ghostly spokes extending out from the planet that seem to vanish after a few days. They look like giant spiders' webs, or maybe the outstretched arms of some enormous creature. And they're only visible from very specific angles, so what exactly are they? But we're still not sure how this alignment causes the spokes to appear. It's a spooky mystery that continues to baffle researchers. Hello and welcome to this channel. Today we're going to be learning about the twisted ring spokes. Saturn's rings are one of the most spectacular things in our solar system. The planet's gravitational pull has been able to hold these rings together for billions of years, but thankfully for us, that won't be happening any day soon. We don't know their exact composition, but they are mostly made of water ice with some rock and dust mixed in. The ice crystals are humongous, thousands of times larger than the grains of sand on Earth, and as sunlight hits the crystals, they reflect the light back into space, making the rings visible from Earth even though they are really thin. But while the rings may look solid, they're not. They're more like a never-ending blizzard. All the ice crystals are falling around Saturn at about 10 miles per hour, but even though they are constantly crashing into each other, they don't seem to accumulate into bigger pieces. As the crystals hit each other, they stick together for a brief moment before separating again. And somehow they always break apart into smaller crystals instead of sticking together. This process of constantly breaking up and sticking together seems to keep all the ice in small crystal form. And sometimes these ice crystals gather together in strange ways. If you have ever looked closely at photos of Saturn's rings, you may have noticed something odd. There are these dark gaps where you wouldn't expect there to be anything. These gaps are called kinks. They are not an actual part of the ring. Instead, they are just spaces between the ringlets. Kinks can stretch for hundreds of miles, and they look like giant cracks in the rings. But they aren't cracks. They are actually an illusion. The reason for this illusion is that the rings are opaque and flat. They reflect the light around them. Since we see the top and bottom of the rings at the same time, it looks flat. If the rings weren't flat, they would look curved. But because they are flat, they reflect the same light on both sides. When a kink first appears, we can't actually see the light coming from behind the ring, which makes the kink look darker than the rest of the ring. And because we can't see behind the ring, the kink looks like a gap. However, once the kink has been there for a while, the light from behind the ring starts to reflect off the sides of the ringlets, and then the kink doesn't look as dark anymore. Eventually, the kink completely fades away. The appearance of these kinks was a total mystery for a long time. Scientists knew that they probably had something to do with the wave-like ripples in the rings, but they didn't know exactly how. Then, in 2019, scientists finally figured out how the waves and the kinks were connected. You see, waves naturally spread out to the sides as they move through a medium. This means that the wave spreads faster and faster over time. And when the wave reaches the edge of the ring, it reflects back toward the center. This means that the wave moves faster than it should. And this extra speed creates a ripple that spreads through the ring. As the ripple spreads, the density of the ice crystals changes. When the crystals become more densely packed together, they reflect more light and make the ring brighter. But when the crystals become more spread out, they reflect less light and make the ring darker. And this changing brightness is what we see as a kink. But as soon as scientists solved the mystery of the kinks, they realized they had another mystery on their hands. At first, scientists thought that these shapes were just kinks. They had no idea why the kinks were moving, but they assumed it had to do with the ripples spreading through the ring. But as they watched, they saw that these shapes moved strangely. Eventually, scientists got a better look at the shapes and realized they weren't kinks at all. They were something else entirely. The shapes were not waves in the rings. Instead, they were solid and opaque. They looked kind of like long, thin feathers, or maybe the arms of some sort of celestial octopus. These mysterious shapes are what we call spokes here on Earth. You see, Saturn's rings are humongous, stretching over 6,000 miles in length. That's almost as wide as 20 of the United States lined up side by side. But despite their size, they are actually very thin, often less than a mile thick. And that's not the only thing that makes Saturn's rings unique. Most systems of rings in our galaxy are opaque and reflect light very well. But Saturn's rings are humongous, yet also very thin. For a long time, scientists had no idea how such a massive structure could be so thin. That's because in physics, there's a rule called conservation of angular momentum. This is the same reason why a ballerina pulls her arms in when she spins around. She starts spinning fast, then slows down when she puts her arms back out. Well, something must have caused Saturn's rings to spin very fast. And then some mysterious force must have pulled them together, making them thicker and slowing them down. We don't know exactly what this force was, but we do know that Saturn's humongous magnetic field had something to do with it. It's so powerful that it affects the rings in many strange ways. Saturn's magnetic field is generated by its metallic liquid interior. It extends all the way to its rings. This explains why we only ever see the spokes from certain angles. And it also explains why the spokes look dark. The magnetic field lines are pushing the ice crystals in one direction. Scientists think that they are responsible for creating the gaps in the rings. And that's likely due to Saturn's moon Titan. As Titan orbits the planet, its gravity pulls the ice out of the ring. Over millions of years, this creates the gap where the moon will pass through the ring. But while this theory makes sense, it's not the only one. This is a really exciting possibility because Enceladus has a huge amount of water vapor coming out of its vents. Its main goal was to take pictures of the planet and its rings, and it found that Saturn's rings are actually humongous. The main set is over 200 feet tall. Unfortunately, Cassini had to end its mission early. It had been orbiting Saturn for 13 years and running out of fuel. But fortunately, we have lots of pictures from the mission. And thanks to these amazing pictures, we're starting to understand the true nature of Saturn's rings. We're learning how the waves interact with the rings, how the magnetic field is shaping the rings, and now we even know a little bit more about what the spokes are. Now we just need to get another spacecraft on its way to Saturn so we can continue learning about this truly remarkable place. What do you want to learn about Saturn next? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if you love space exploration.